You know that strange, slightly unsettling feeling when you're scrolling through your investment app at 2 a.m.? Everything is moving, numbers flashing, charts bouncing like a pinball machine, and then it hits you. My entire financial future depends on things I don't control. Market sentiment, central bank decisions, geopolitics. Whether Elon tweets something unhinged before breakfast, you're told this is smart, rational, sophisticated, but emotionally, it feels fragile, like your life savings are being tossed around by forces that don't even know you exist. And here's the part most people never say out loud. Even when markets go up, the anxiety doesn't disappear because deep down you know, what hype builds quickly, hype can destroy just as fast. Now here's what almost nobody tells you about building real durable wealth. It's not exciting and it's not glamorous. And honestly, it's so boring most people would rather gamble than commit to it. But the businesses that quietly generate millions in cash flow year after year, the ones that survive recessions, crashes, inflation shocks, pandemics, are rarely the sexy ones. They're the ones you barely notice. The ones that make people's eyes glaze over at dinner, the ones nobody brags about on social media. And that's not a weakness, that's the moat. Because today I want to flip a deeply ingrained belief that destroys more financial futures than bad luck ever could. The belief that exciting equals profitable. Let me show you something different. 7 businesses so boring they sound like punishment, yet built on structural advantages most investors obsess over but rarely recognize in real life. Self-storage, commercial laundry, waste management, plumbing and HVAC, insurance brokerage, veterinary clinics, subscription car washes, and more importantly, the pattern hiding underneath all of them. Here's what most people get completely backwards about money. They chase upside, and they chase excitement, innovation, disruption, stories they can proudly tell at Thanksgiving. If it's trending, it must be opportunity. If it's boring, returns must be mediocre. That assumption is financially lethal because popularity attracts competition. Competition compresses margins. Thin margins destroy resilience. And resilience, not brilliance, is what builds wealth. Nobody wants to say, I invested in trash collection. I built my wealth on storage units. I own a regional plumbing company. There's no glamour, no social proof, no bragging rights. But markets do not reward entertainment. They reward economics. And here's something even more uncomfortable. Most people can't tell the difference between a great story and a great business. They're wired to confuse them because our brains run on narrative, not spreadsheets. That's not a character flaw. That's evolution working against your portfolio. What you actually want in investing, in business, even in career strategy, is an unfair advantage. A moat, something that protects you when conditions get ugly. And the most reliable place to find moats? Boring businesses solving annoying, unavoidable problems. Let me prove it, business by business. Let's start with a masterpiece of psychological economics, self-storage. You've seen them everywhere. Beige buildings, roll-up doors, brand names your brain instantly discards. They look forgettable because they are. But economically, they're brilliant. Self-storage runs on one of the most predictable patterns in human behavior. We accumulate things we don't want to deal with. People downsize. They inherit furniture wrapped in guilt. They go through divorces, then they delay decisions for years. So they rent a storage unit. And here's where it becomes fascinating. Once people move their stuff in, they rarely move it out. Not because they love paying, because moving it is worse. Renting a truck, spending a weekend, confronting emotional baggage disguised as old boxes. So the math becomes irrationally rational. $120 per month versus psychological discomfort. Autopay wins. That's switching cost powered by human avoidance. Now add the financial layer. Self-storage facilities operate with minimal staff, no inventory, low variable costs, and very high customer stickiness. Shurgard, one of Europe's largest operators, posted EBITDA margins of roughly 57% in 2024. In the U.S., self-storage rate NOI margins remain among the highest in commercial real estate. The Western region alone was running at 76.8% as of Q3 2025. Finbox plus one. During downturns, demand often increases. People downsize homes, businesses shrink office space, life transitions accelerate. Plus, zoning restrictions limit new supply, which means owners raise rents quietly, gradually, predictably. Most customers barely react because storage is not something people think about, it's something they forget about. And forgettable revenue is incredibly durable revenue. Next, commercial laundry services, another business nobody dreams about owning. Until you understand the economics, hotels must have clean sheets, hospitals must have sanitized linens, nursing homes cannot skip towel service. There is no scenario where clients say, "Let's pause laundry this month." Demand is built in and non-negotiable. Now add long-term contracts, recurring revenue, predictable volumes, stable cash flow. Switching providers isn't simple. It's logistics disruption, compliance risk, quality uncertainty. So once a provider proves reliable, clients stay. Yes, machines are capital-intensive upfront, but once installed and amortized, they run for years. Costs become predictable, processes standardized, margins stable. And notice the customer psychology here. The client's procurement manager who signed your contract probably doesn't even think about you anymore. You're invisible infrastructure. You're a line item that auto-renews because nobody wants to own the risk of switching. That invisibility isn't a problem. It's your pricing power in disguise. Well-run operations commonly generate 20 to 35% operating margins with remarkably low volatility. No hype cycles, no consumer trends, no fashion risk, just quiet compounding. This is the opposite of story investing, and this is math investing. Now let's talk about something even less glamorous: waste management, trash. Not exactly cocktail party material, but economically a fortress. Municipal contracts lasting years, commercial contracts auto-renewing, heavy regulatory barriers, permits, routes, infrastructure, environmental compliance. In many regions, competition is extremely limited, which means pricing power. Waste operators raise prices almost every year, and customers pay. Because what's the alternative? Let garbage accumulate? This industry generates extraordinary free cash flow with very low churn. And here's the hidden psychological asset. Trash collection is invisible when it works, which means customers don't think about it, which means they don't shop around, which means revenue stays stable. There's actually a name economists use for this: negative attention economy. The best service businesses are the ones you only notice when they fail, and when they don't fail. You never price compare, you never research alternatives, you just pay the bill and forget about it. Waste Management, Inc. The U.S. giant has raised its dividend every single year for over 2 decades. That's not a coincidence. That's moat economics playing out in real time. Invisibility again becomes a competitive advantage. Now combine two industries built on urgency: plumbing and HVAC, because pipes and climate systems fail at the worst possible moments. Flooding kitchen, frozen pipes, dead AC in a heat wave, broken furnace in winter. This is emergency demand. And emergency demand is one of the strongest pricing engines in business. When your ceiling is leaking, you're not negotiating. You're saying, "Fix it." That's pricing power born from stress and urgency. Now add structural supply constraints, years of training, licensing, certification, skilled labor shortages so severe that vocational schools in the US and Europe can't keep up with demand. The result? Demand steady, supply tight, prices rise. But the real moat isn't even the emergency call, and it's what comes after. Once customers find a technician who shows up on time and actually solves the problem, they never want to experiment again. They call that same number. They sign the maintenance agreement. They book the seasonal service. Chaos converted into recurring cash flow. And here's what nobody talks about. The best trade businesses aren't just service companies, they're relationship companies with tools. The wrench is almost incidental. The trust is the product. Next, insurance brokerage. Possibly the most underestimated wealth machine in this entire list, and the most misunderstood. Insurance brokers do not carry underwriting risk. They earn commissions, full stop. No claims exposure, no catastrophe reserves, no balance sheet drama when a hurricane hits. Just recurring commission income on policies that auto-renew. And commercial clients rarely switch. Why? Because switching brokers is painful. Documentation, coverage uncertainty, administrative friction. The terrifying question, what if the new broker misses something and we're underinsured? That fear alone locks in relationships for years. Retention rates in niche commercial brokerages often exceed 90% annually. Think about what that means. You write a book of business. Every January, 90% of it renews automatically. You wake up on New Year's Day and you've already earned most of your year's revenue before you've had your first coffee. Over time, brokers build something even more valuable, a book of business that's a transferable, sellable asset. When you retire or exit, someone will pay a multiple of revenue for that predictable client base. Boring, administrative, financially elegant. Now let's talk about emotion. Veterinary clinics. Pet ownership has surged globally, but the deeper shift is psychological. Pets are family. In the U.S. alone, the veterinary services market was valued at $61.35 billion in 2023, with a projected 8.9% compound annual growth rate through 2030. When a pet is sick, owners do not price shop like rational economists. They act like anxious humans, and that behavioral reality translates directly into financials. Vet clinics benefit from recurring visits, high-margin procedures, medication revenue, and loyalty that borders on unconditional. Top-performing emergency and specialty clinics post EBITDA margins of 15 to 25%, with the best exceeding 25%, and advanced dental procedures alone can generate net margins above 40%. Maven Imaging +1. Switching vets feels risky and emotionally uncomfortable. Trust plus attachment equals powerful switching cost. Add a growing shortage of veterinarians, veterinary schools simply can't graduate enough to meet demand, and an accelerating wave of private equity consolidation. And you get durable demand with pricing power at exactly the moment supply is tightening. That's not coincidence. That's a structural advantage playing out in slow motion. Final example, subscription-based automated car washes, once purely transactional, now membership-driven. And the data tells a striking story. In Q2 2025, car wash membership revenue rose 15.2% year over year across nearly 3,500 locations. Even as retail revenue dropped 11.9%, total same-store revenue still grew 5.6%. Because here's the psychology. People rarely cancel small subscriptions, even when usage drops. $25 feels trivial, responsible, easy to ignore. Meanwhile, modern tunnel washes are highly automated, low labor, high throughput, fixed costs spread across a membership base that pays whether they show up or not. Subscription car wash models typically generate 30 to 50% higher revenue per customer compared to purely transactional models, while dramatically improving cash flow predictability. Rain or shine, the membership revenue arrives. Clean cars are vanity, maintenance, habit, all three triggers at once. Again, boring, repeatable, profitable. Now let's zoom out, because the real lesson isn't storage or trash or plumbing. It's this. Wealth is built by minimizing fragility, not maximizing excitement. Most people chase upside. Real wealth builders chase durability. Income that survives boredom. Systems that work without constant heroics. Cash flow that doesn't collapse when hype fades. Financial stress rarely comes only from low income. It comes from fragile income. Income dependent on trends, timing, virality, or constant hustle. And there's something deeply underappreciated about what stable, boring cash flow does to your psychology. When money feels predictable, you think long-term. You take smarter risks. You stop reacting emotionally to every market swing. You negotiate from strength, not fear. That behavioral shift is worth more than any single investment return, because the biggest destroyer of wealth isn't a bad trade. It's making 20 panic decisions in a row because your income felt fragile and your brain went into survival mode. Boring businesses remove that fragility. They create the conditions for rational thinking. And rational thinking, compounded over decades, is how wealth is actually built. So what do these 7 businesses have in common? 5 structural advantages. Memorize them. First, recurring demand. Revenue tied to ongoing needs, not occasional purchases. Humans keep accumulating stuff, getting sick, generating trash, needing warm homes, and wanting clean cars. Second, switching costs. Leaving is painful, inconvenient, risky, or emotionally uncomfortable. The friction of switching is often worth more than any price difference. Third, low trend dependency. No reliance on hype cycles or cultural fads. These businesses don't need a viral moment. They need Tuesday to happen. Fourth, pricing power. The ability to raise prices gradually without mass defection because necessity, habit, or loyalty absorbs the increase quietly. Fifth, invisibility. The best businesses are barely noticed when functioning well. Invisibility isn't indifference. It's the behavioral lock-in that keeps customers from shopping around. So here's how to use this insight. If you're investing, stop asking, "Is this exciting?" Ask, "Is this durable?" Look at customer retention rates. Look at pricing history. Look at how the business performed in 2009, 2020, and 2022. Did revenue hold? Did margins compress or expand? That data will tell you more than any growth story. If you're building or buying a business, look where attention is low and necessity is high. The overlap between nobody wants to own this and everyone needs this to exist is where the best economics hide. If you're choosing a career, don't underestimate boring skills. Trades, operations, infrastructure, compliance, risk management. These skills age well. They're hard to offshore. They're even harder to automate than people think. And the talent shortage in these fields is creating compensation dynamics that are quietly outpacing many exciting white-collar sectors. And finally, give yourself permission to stop chasing shiny objects. Because here's the truth most people learn too late. Excitement fades, trends die, hype collapses, but boring survives. Boring compounds, boring builds wealth. And someone, quietly, invisibly, owns those boring cash machines you drive past every day without a second thought. The storage facility off the highway, the laundry service behind the hospital, the HVAC company with the magnetic sign on a beat-up van. No one's posting about them on social media. No one's putting them on a magazine cover. But their owners? They're sleeping well. That's the real unfair advantage. Thanks for watching. If this video changed how you think about money, not just what to invest in, but how to think about investing, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next one.